Jai Jinendra. Yes. Welcome everybody. We're really excited about today's program. Mountains beyond mountains, really. I'm sure everybody is as excited as the JPF team for this session. Let's start with the Namokar mantra. I am just so excited about today's session that I want to keep my talk and everything else to a minimum so that we can really hear Rajesh Ji Jain tell us and share with us his experiences. So right away, over to you, Vishal.
Jai Jinendra, everyone. Pleasure to be here Sunday morning. And it's a wonderful session, and it's my pleasure to welcome all of you on behalf of JITO Professional Forum as well as JITO Business Network. I'll take maybe 2 to 3 minutes just to talk about JITO and a couple of these forums within JITO, and then we'll come to our speaker, who we are very fortunate to have with us. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, hopefully you should be able to see my screen. Okay.
Right, we are.
Sure. Just many of you could have joined for the first time. So JITO, just stats here, numbers are many. The bottom line is that this is one organization which is across all sects of Jain community, a global organization with about 67 chapters, 14,000 members, including youth wing and ladies wing, over 30,000 members globally. A professionally run organization with a CEO, with a CTO, and number of office bearers, with a proper setup in Mumbai, with a proper balance sheet of about 800 crores. It's a large organization, but focused for the betterment of the Jain community around economic empowerment and service, and really what we call Gyan through various such forum where even JPF falls in. Growing organization. Just recently a new chapter got opened up in Canada, so I would recommend all of you to know more about JITO. Has got very many different wings, one being JITO Professional Forum, for which we are here. JITO Business Network, a very powerful forum of JITO business community. JITO Incubation and Innovation Foundation, which provides the support to really channel the spirit of innovation and entrepreneurship, the session which is about today. And JITO Angel Network, which invests in startups every single month. There are a number of startups where the investment happens. And likewise, there are a number of different verticals within JITO. There is JITO Administrative Training Foundation, which provides hostels and support to Jain community students to get to the civil services and high profile jobs in the administration of the country. And then there's a Shraman Arogyam, which is providing seva and support to our Jain sadhus and sons, right? JPF, which is where we are part of, is pretty much a platform to bring and engage and network among the Jain professionals globally. It is really to provide that supporting structure to really help each other. And our goal and the vision is to connect Jain professionals globally, provide them enough venues and networking opportunities, and support so that ultimately we really grow together. We help each other, we learn in the process, and that's what JPF is all about. And within JPF, there are many different forums. Certainly, there is a forum around corporate professionals where the JPF mentorship program is, but there are forums around CAs, doctors, lawyers, and like that. We have had many different initiatives. I'll not go through each of them one by one, but recently, for example, when the budget was announced on the very same day, had a session around what it means from our perspective, the reads from the budget. Likewise, during COVID last year as well as this year, number of things are happening. iBox is a forum which is in the line of TEDx. In fact, there is going to be an iBox forum, I think in a week or 2 weeks time, which is going to focus on metaverse, what it means, what are the opportunities in this new world. And we have one of our JPF mentorship program mentors, Rajesh Jain from Meta, earlier known as Facebook, to talk about his ideas about what lies ahead. So the point being that this forum is a forum of business people, intellectuals, curious people who want to do good, who want to create an impact, not only in the materialistic way, but also in terms of the social capital and helping the community at large. And the mentorship forum, the last brochure, we started with the Level Up series about in June of 21, and had the 6 such sessions. Last was around how to start for a fabulous 2022, and the session number 7 is today with Rajesh ji. So that's about JITO, JPF, JBN. There is a website you can go to. You will find enough material. Today in the session, we will talk about mentorship program towards the end because Rajesh ji has to leave at 12:30 sharps. But we will touch upon the mentorship program at about 12:30 or so. And if at all you have any questions, clarifications, how to join, what you get out of it, you can ask us at that time. Okay. With that, I will stop sharing and I'll come to the session today, which is Mountains Beyond Mountains by Rajesh Jain. I'll just take a few minutes. Personally, I'm very inspired by Rajesh ji. Certainly, he's an entrepreneur. He has got amazing track record. I'll just touch upon few of the things. But I'm really amazed by personally by his learning and really sharing. Every single day he writes a blog 5:30 in the morning, and that's about the time I get up and I read his thoughts about the new India. Both in the he writes both about the political side as well as on the overall marketing and technology side. So it's an amazing to really see his thoughts. So Rajesh Jain is a tech entrepreneur, B.Tech from IIT Mumbai. He's MS from Columbia University, New York. He was a pioneer in Asia's .com revolution and created India's first internet portals late in 1990, which was later acquired by Sifi. And then he started many different ventures, some of which he is going to talk about. Currently, he is a co-founder and the CEO of Netcore, which sends about 15 billion messages every single month. Rajesh was named as best strategist by Economic Times. He's featured in Time and the Newsweek magazines, recently an Economist for his venture around AI-driven, I think, feedback engine, the poll engine called Prashnam. Maybe we'll hear more about that from you, Rajesh ji, later today. He has got a very unique thing he's been talking about in the world of politics and what the future of India in the political landscape could look like. He was the one back in 2011 to predict BJP winning 272 plus seats in 2014, which actually happened, and he really played a role along with BJP and our Prime Minister Modi to really think about different ways to approach the poll strategies. So with that, it's my pleasure again to have Rajesh ji with us, sharing his journey and mental model and how part of his successes so far. Over to you, Rajesh ji.
Rajesh ji, can you please unmute yourself?
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vishal. And Jai Janendra to everyone. It's a pleasure being at the JITO forum. And what I'll do is over the next first 30 minutes, I'll share some of my views, basically on entrepreneurship, a little bit about my own journey. So you have the context of what I will come later. And then there are some learnings which I've had, which hopefully could be helpful for all of you. And then that'll leave us plenty of time for Q&A. So I'm looking forward to the questions because all of you have come with something, some mountain that you would like to climb. And hopefully we can all help in that process. So let's begin our session. So it's about mountains beyond mountains. And I'll talk about this phrase later on in the presentation. It's really an entrepreneur's journey. That's what we will cover largely. That's what I've spent most of my life doing. So, what is entrepreneurship really? I mean, there are lots of course, definitions, but I'll give you my take. Entrepreneurs respond to a pre-existing big hole in the market. So they are there who are spotting the opportunities. Every entrepreneur starts with us thinking that they have a 70% chance of success. And the reality is 99.99% ventures fail. Okay? But that optimism is really what drives the world forward because the ventures that succeed have created the world around us as we know it. So entrepreneurs are going to work daily, not to increase the chance of success, but to reduce the odds of failure because the default is failure. You have to look at the journey itself as the reward, not worry about the destination. You need to know, and I'll talk about that later, the direction in which you are going, but you have to enjoy the journey, the climbing of the mountain, not just reaching the peak. And there are lots of ideas. I've written about this on my blog and I'll point you to it right at the end. It's rajeshjain.com. There's a subsection where I talk about entrepreneurship. So it's about the dream that you have, the ideas, the company that you create. How do you ensure that there is cash? How do you initial cash for starting up? And the team that you create, profits, flywheel, first customers, success or failure at the end of it. And every day, remember, you are going out there to make sure that you don't fail. This is really a golden age of entrepreneurship in India. It's what I used to dream about for the last many years. It's happening now. You have first generation entrepreneurs, you have serial entrepreneurs, you have family businesses, of course, who are natural entrepreneurs. Risk capital is available from a wide variety of sources today. The transformation of industries is getting accelerated. Okay, because everyone has to become digital. It's what I call star tech. Rising incomes in India. In the coming years, we are today at roughly $2,000 per capita income. We should be doubling this in the next at least 7 to 8 years on the dollar level. And as with every doubling, the surplus that is available for people, consumers to spend, okay, for the services and products that entrepreneurs offer goes up dramatically. Entrepreneurs today are looking to tap global markets. You can do that right out of India. And the exits which are happening in terms of ESOP and secondaries and IPOs and acquisitions are all fueling this. They are all basically creating new entrepreneurs, new risk capital. So this flywheel, which we used to hear for the last 20, 30 years about Silicon Valley, and there's a very good new book come out just a couple of weeks ago called The Power Law by Sebastian Mallaby, which talks about the history of the VC industry, of course, largely in the US. That is now happening in India for sure. And this is an unstoppable force. Okay? Don't worry about the failures, worry about the successes, which will move forward. Even from the failures, you will have new entrepreneurs emerge in all of this. Great horizons which are there in terms of what's coming up. There is so much of areas to innovate on. These are just some recent books which I've captured. You look at consumer, everything is becoming tech, agri-tech, edu-tech, fintech, health tech, insure tech. Every industry has to now become basically digital because the customers are basically increasingly becoming digital. B2B SaaS, the industry in which I work, tremendous opportunities for Indian companies. Estimates are that this will become $1 trillion valuation opportunity in the next 1 year. And there are probably going to be multiple such industries which are there. There's deep tech, AI, ML. So Indian entrepreneurs, I think, are doing amazingly well. And we have had this natural advantage with science and maths and engineering, which now can be applied to solving global problems. Manufacturing is getting transformed, the emergence of robotics, and of course, AI on the shop floor. Healthcare and biotech, we have seen what mRNA vaccines can do. And now the applications of ideas like this to many other diseases and medical challenges which are there. The whole emerging world of Web3 and blockchain and DAO, decentralized autonomous organizations, very much closely linked with the metaverse that you will hear about soon. But the core idea that Web3 is really creating a new infrastructure. What was centralized is becoming decentralized. So there are two ways to play it. You can look at a lot of companies building out the infrastructure. But as a new entrepreneur, look at second order effects, third order effects. That is where the multiplier wealth creation happens. The infrastructure will happen. Now, what is it that you can build on top of the infrastructure? What is centralized that you can help disintermediate with Web3? Metaverse, quantum computing, another great frontier. Energy, I mean, this whole hydrogen, initiatives which are happening, even in nuclear fusion areas, there's a lot of innovation happening. So a completely big change coming up in energy, which will dramatically reduce energy costs. And that in its single way will actually help eliminate basic poverty in the world in the next decade. And of course, next generation cars, electric vehicles and the entire ecosystem around that. And finally, space, the final frontier. So a lot of interesting new horizons to capture going forward. You have, all of us, in fact, have 3 or 4 choices. You can either create a startup of your own. You can join a startup. If you're early in your career, and that's a great way to learn. In a startup, you will be doing many different functions. You can join a big company. Even big companies today have realized that they have to be entrepreneurial in their mindset. Or of course, you can study more. Okay, all options are available. So essentially, it's about entrepreneurship, experience, education. So lay your great foundation. I think tomorrow's world is going to be many, many times better than us. The pace of innovation is dramatically increasing. So it's a great time, a time of change, but a great time to actually be working. A little bit about my journey. So you see me, how I look, maybe I think 25 years ago. The bottom one has the big deal in my life. I'll talk about that in a minute. So 1984 to 88 was IIT Bombay. 88 to 92 was in the US. I did my master's at Columbia Electrical Engineering. Then I worked for about 2.5 years at 9X. 92 to 95 slide is coming, where I've had a lot of failures. Then I started India World, and then 97 Netcore, and in the middle, as Vishal mentioned, worked on the periphery of politics, couple of ventures. One worked, Niti Digital, Naidisha tried to get a movement for prosperity, that did not. There were a few turning points in my life. 1988, my father's advice. He grew up in a village in Rajasthan and did his engineering in MBM College, Jodhpur, and got a Tata scholarship to go abroad in the 60s, and then he came back. As a civil engineer, worked in the initial days and then became an entrepreneur, tried many different things. So I saw him firsthand. When I left for the US, he said, finish your master's in 9 months, you work for 2 years and then you come back to India. You are not going to stay in the US. If I could do that in the 60s, you can do that now. And that is exactly what I did. So for me, the decision to come back was made. And he said, you have to become an entrepreneur. You don't have to join me in business. You can do whatever you want. And even through the failures that I had, he never once said that I have to essentially become part of what he was doing. 1994, I spent 2 months in the US after a string of failures after my return to India. And that is where I sort of put the blueprint for what later became India World. A lot of my ideas came over 2 days when I was reading C.K. Prahlad's book, Competing for the Future. And that helped me crystallize the fact that there are many different futures. If I can make my vision for the future succeed, I become successful. And And 99, my wife's advice, Bhavna, we have worked together for almost the last now 28 years together. After the India World deal, the next morning, she told me, you see the deal on the right. She said that if you are going to think about the money you have, you will never do anything again in life. We are custodians of God's money on earth. We have got the money for a specific reason. You will learn about that in the coming years. But go out and keep working, keep creating new things. That is what you are good at. And that really laid the foundation for what I have kept on doing as an entrepreneur. So I've coined this word Proficorn. Everyone talks about unicorns. Unicorns raise a lot of money, burn a lot of money, of course, create wonderful things also. But it's not to say that if you don't raise money, you can't create new things. So both India World and Netcore have been Proficorns. We have been bootstrapped, profitable, and extremely valuable. So India World I spoke about. Netcore, we've done multiple pivots. I've professionalized the management also because I realized I was the bottleneck in terms of getting revenues and growth coming in. We are now in B2B SaaS, sort of email and marketing global company now, about $85 million in revenue, extremely profitable, hoping to IPO in the next year or so. So these are my two Proficorns. Like I said earlier, 30 years and more than 30 plus failures. Every time I see the slide, I say, hey, you know what? I forgot something else. So this list can keep growing. So pre-India World, I tried multiple things. And India World also, people look at the success. Success is never overnight. It's a lot of hard work, a lot of ideas which I tried did not work. The early years of Netcore. And even now, I keep trying different things. Some things work, some things do not. But that's the nature of life as an entrepreneur. And you have to sort of accept one important thing, that when something fails, it is the venture which has failed. It is not you who have failed. Okay, very important point. Otherwise, it is very easy to go down a sort of sliding path of depression and negativity. So rise back. And that's sort of the spirit in which I will share some of the ideas going forward. So this Mountains Beyond Mountains was a book which came out probably 15, 20 years ago, I think. It was by Tracy Kidder, Pulitzer Prize winner. And it was about a farmer in Haiti, essentially, who was working in the area of medicine, Dr. Paul Farmer. And I loved the phrase. It's a Haitian proverb, which means basically that when you climb one mountain, you're at the bottom, you see one mountain and you climb it. And after you climb it, you realize, oh, there is another bigger mountain to be climbed. It's mountains beyond mountains. And I realized that so beautifully captures the life of an entrepreneur. Okay? As you are climbing, and many times you will actually slide down, okay, because you fail. You have to end up coming down, maybe reclimb that mountain or find a different mountain. You have to like that feeling. Okay, because the life of an entrepreneur is basically you will go in the morning, you have 20 things to do. There are emergencies which take place. You have to solve that problem, the other problem. You'll come back in the evening thinking you have not solved 15 of your list of 20, another 10 items have been added. But that's the life you have to like. Entrepreneurs also tend to live in the future, okay, because you are imagining the future. What you're creating today will be for customers and markets a couple of years down the line. So you have to have a clear vision for the future. So, you have to accept that. Like, you don't waste too much time, reading the daily newspapers. you're creating for a different world. There's a lot of noise really on social media and everywhere else. It's too easy to get caught up in a lot of those things. Then there's this whole thing around what I call the monkey problem. Everyone who walks into your cabin or comes to you basically in your organization has a problem to solve. The problem is the monkey. Okay, when they leave, they want to keep that monkey in your cabin. And if you let that monkey stay, you'll be sitting in a cabin full of monkeys. Your goal has to be to ensure that they leave with the monkey going out back with them. Okay, so for that, you've got to delegate. You've got to make sure you give responsibility to other people. You can't be solving everyone's problem. So you have to grow to delegate. I learned this almost by default because, I had to travel in the early days of India World to meet potential investors. So I had to trust that my team will be able to do things even in my absence. In 2007, I hired a CEO because I realized that for almost 8-9 years, I had failed to grow Netcore. I tried 15 different things. I could create products, but I could not grow it. So I decided we had to professionalize the management. And that was the turning point for Netcore. The last 15 years, we have grown tremendously. We were about 5-6 crores in 2007-8. It's now a 650 crore company, 750 people, global operations. And we would not have managed to accomplish that had I not accepted that I am the bottleneck for growth. Okay. Otherwise, it becomes very, very difficult. You will stay small and you will keep sort of erring. Dealing with failure, like I said earlier, I think failure is part of the terrain. It should not pull you down. It should not sort of make you think that you are not going to succeed. I just told you 30 times I failed, but that doesn't stop me from trying again. That's the nature of the person the entrepreneur is. And it's just that there is, like I said, it's going to be part of the terrain. Your goal is to ensure that you increase the odds of your success every day. 0.01% is what are the odds of success when you're starting a venture. Okay, remember that. But it's a great journey. I mean, this is the mind which you really have to do it at least once in your life. Now, how can we make better decisions? This is a phrase from a book on Charlie Munger by Robert Hegstrom, where he says that for the good decision making, you need a lattice work of mental models. So you may be very good in one particular area, but if you can understand the big ideas from physics, chemistry, maths, economics, sociology, psychology, you will be a much better decision maker. So that is what he calls the lattice work. So having mental models where you can borrow and you can learn essentially from the best ideas in the world. So reading is very important for that. Luckily, today we have access to tremendous amounts of information, but keep a wisdom available from different people, etc. But build multiple models. My big regret is that I was very tunnel visioned engineering tech for a long time. In the last 10-15 years, I've tried to expand my own thinking. Always think of decisions which are consequential and irreversible. So you can make a 2x2 grid. How consequential and how reversible is the decision. Many times we sweat about a lot of small decisions. When that creates anxiety and all of these things, you get caught up in a mental trap. In any decision that you have to make, break it down further. Which is the consequential part and which is the irreversible part? That is what you should focus on. That is where you need to spend time on. More other decisions are either inconsequential or irreversible. They're inconsequential, doesn't matter. And if they're reversible, you can always turn around. So remember this. This is from Shane Parrish, from a course on decision making that I've done. He has I'm forgetting the name, something street he has, Furnham Street or something. But Shane Parrish is the person there. Don't sweat the small stuff. So in a company, many times you're making decisions, the small decisions. So I call it this $100 delta decision rule. You can set your own limits. Any decision less than $100, you can say yes by default. And you can set your own thresholds. So whether it is, in terms of the hotel to stay at when you're traveling or a flight ticket. Okay, don't try and super optimize on all of these things. My mama once had also told me that, look, in your company, whatever business you do, there is always going to be 1 to 2%. He called it chori. I mean, he was running a hospital, but things which will not be efficient. Don't sweat that stuff. It's a given. Because otherwise, again, too much energy gets wasted in these types of things. Then there is this Jim Collins. So like you'll see, I borrow a lot of ideas from different people and create my own sort of variations on that. There's the genius of the and. Many times, decisions that you face will be binary. Arey, ye karna hai ya wo karna hai. This or that. In a business, growth or profits. Okay, that type of stuff. Jim Collins basically says, look at the genius of the and, not the tyranny of the or. Okay, so how do you frame your thinking such that you can be able to do both? And in a way, we have done the same thing in Netcore. When I was talked to potential investors, they say, look, you don't need profits. You just need growth. We said we can be profitable and we can get high growth. And that's then how we started building our business. With this will also come a lot of what I call the ORCs, the OR conundrums. Okay, so every and decision is actually an OR conundrum, which you have to resolve. Okay, that's what you have to do. And these are there everywhere. Microscope or telescope. Do you look at the short term or the long term? You have to create a balance between the two. You need both. You need to deliver for the next quarter, yet you need to lay the foundation for the future. So it's the and, okay, which is important. And of course, everything has a context. So don't look at this as sort of absolute rules in that sense, but you got to evolve this. But this will help you give frameworks. When you're facing an and decision, think a little deeper about it. Or an or decision. Yeah. Then we get to business building. When you're going out building your business, I think one very important thing to do, when many of you all will be making a decision very soon to whether you want to become entrepreneurs or not. Think of the worst case scenario. Even when you're working in a large company, okay, you can be entrepreneurial in your outset, in your mindset. Sorry. Look at the worst case scenario. Many times we go in there with full optimism, and then when things start going bad, you start worrying about it. Oh, will I lose money on this? If you can't afford, like an entrepreneur, assume 2 years of no salary. Can you survive on that? Can your family survive on that? Can you afford to lose the X lakhs that you may invest in your venture? What is the worst case scenario? Once you have that in mind, then you're much more mentally prepared for the future. Also, compass, not map. What this means is that when you're an entrepreneur, you will never have a perfect, like a map, with all the roads charted out for the future. What you have is a compass in your hands. Okay, you have a compass which will point you in the direction that you need to go, but you don't have a map. So many times you will walk, you will probably go down a different path, then you need to come back and then maybe make some alterations in the path that you are going on. But you have to be comfortable with this. As a manager in a company, you probably have a map. Okay, I have to grow this market share from 15% to 18% this year. There's a playbook which will be there. As an entrepreneur, all you have is directional compass. Product market fit is very important. Most of my failures have been because I built the product, but I could not get a product market fit. If customers are not prepared to pay for your product, if you do not have this fit, okay, there is no, your venture is going to fail. So you have to figure out how you get early validation of customers, early customers, willing to pay, because that is the only metric that is there. If they are not paying with their time or their attention, it's not going to work. Tracking cash flow in a business is very, very important. Okay, the single most important reason why businesses fail is because basically, they run out of cash. So it's not the billings. Okay, you may have billed a lot, but if people don't pay you on time, you have a problem because you have to pay all your suppliers, your employees, your rent, all has to be paid within 30 days. If you have 90 days, 120 days recoveries, you need 3 months of cash flow. How are you going to get that? Okay, so many times we just look at the billing. I mean, I only track, I'm not a finance background person. The number I track every day is how much cash has come into the company, how much have we spent, what is the surplus. This is how I've followed my life for the last 30 years. Disagree and commit is a line phrase which one of our CEOs in Netcore, Girish, told me. Basically, it came from his time at Intel. He said many times in meetings we disagree. And the Indian nature is that we will keep quiet, we will sulk. Okay, we are not like the US guys who will tell on their face that, look, I don't agree with what you have. We will basically think that, okay, maybe we are wrong or something like that. It is very important that if you have something which you disagree, state it publicly, give your opinion. Okay, don't be afraid to speak. But after that, if the team as a whole decides on a certain direction, you have to commit. Then it is no sulking. Then it is not, look, I told you so. You are part of the same team. So you have every right to disagree, but once the team decides, once your co-founder or your colleagues decide, or your management decides, you are fully committed. And very important, and I'm delighted that JITO has been running this, try and find a mentor or coach in your life. You need someone else to speak to. Okay, because we have our own view of the world. Many times, we otherwise don't get guidance from people with more wisdom, more experience. When Sushma ji played that video, there were some great lines in there. So try and find one. It could be your spouse. It could be your parents. It could be someone outside with more wisdom, who has and more work experience. But find someone where you can open up to. It could be a friend, anyone. But find someone, ideally a professional in your vertical who has much more experience, who can guide you in the way forward with many of the decisions. Many times, it is not that they are going to tell you, make the decision for you. It is just that when you talk to them, you will clear your own head. You will get greater clarity. They are there to basically listen. They are there to help you articulate your feelings. And then, in a way, like any great Jain guru, or Muni, or our Tirthankars, they'll basically help you discover yourself. I've been thinking also, and as I write, many of these are essays which are there, what I call the life system. And each of us sort of builds one, whether we state it publicly or in words or not. We all have our core beliefs, our mental models, etc. So I've put down a few, and then after this, we'll get to Q&A. So essentially, one of the things, and I discovered this very late, is basically this idea of stoicism. In fact, it is very close to the principles of Jainism when you think about it. It is from the Greeks and Romans, probably 2000 years ago, in fact, around the time that Bhagwan Mahavir had lived. So Buddhism, Jainism, I think Stoicism, all of them have very similar sort of foundations. And the core basic idea is that there are a lot of things that you can't control. Most of the times, our unhappiness is from things that we cannot control. The outcomes where you cannot control. Okay, so I've written a blog series on this, but it's worth understanding. See, like I said, you don't have to go deep, understand the basic ideas. It's sort of bringing in a little bit of detachment also in your life, but don't worry about things where you cannot control. I mean, you're at a train station, okay, worrying about when the train is going to come is not going to help you. The train will come when it comes. You are not the engine driver, not running the railway system. Okay, so a lot of things are there. Okay, so what you have to do is to just figure this out. It will make a big difference in life. Because then you'll realize, you'll rise above a lot of the small things that happen which bother us and which take away energy. Negative, it's all negative stuff. Punctuality, okay, very, very important. I'll give you a very simple example, and to be practical, you can implement it right after this meeting. Zoom, okay, we all now have to go on Zoom, right? So if a meeting is starting at 11 o'clock, I have two rules on punctuality in general. If I am the host of the meeting, means I have to start the session, I start 2 minutes before. I set my alarm. So if it is 11 o'clock, my goal is to start the Zoom meeting at 10:58. If I'm attending someone else's meeting, then I have to be there 1 minute before. If you are trying to be on time at 11 o'clock, you're already late. Think about it. Okay, so punctuality is very, very critical, and it's very easy to do because you can basically just plan. Let me throw as a little extra planning. Making notes, again, there are a lot of things which flow by in a day. I have a spiral book, which I basically write plenty. I'll cover 15, 20 pages in a day. It's a book like this. Okay, 300-page book. I'll finish it in about 15 days. But I write everything. In a meeting, I will make very detailed notes because it keeps me very focused. And after the meeting, I can replay the meeting. There are small ideas which come in, which otherwise are gone because you're jumping into the next meeting after that. And I've written many of these things on my blog, so you can always read up more. Me time, very important. Create some little bit of time for yourself every day. So in my case, it is the morning time. I wake up at 4:30 every day. That 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock plus maybe another 30 minutes of walk is my me time. Okay, where you basically just think through the day, think through the learnings from yesterday, the longer view. You can write it out, think about it, but where there are no distractions, there are no emails, there are no WhatsApps, there are no phone calls which are bothering you. That's why early mornings work much better now. I write every day, like Vishal said. Essentially, I find this as a way of basically thinking better. And I write for myself. I don't worry about whether other people will read. it or not. The blog for me is a great way to basically clarify my own thinking and learn new things. But this discipline, previous night, I will make a list of what things I would like to write on. And even for my company, I mean, I will list down points, and then morning, that me time, that clarity, the early morning is a great time. And work-life balance. All I will say here is that if you're an entrepreneur, your work is your life. Okay, so don't worry about it. I mean, you are not going to get work-life balance. I mean, you need to create time for your family and everything else. But when you're running your venture, you have to be prepared to be fully involved in it. Luckily, Bhavna works with me, so we have plenty of work balance in our life. So I'll stop there. This is my email address. While I write every day at rajeshjain.com, for a lot of the themes that I spoke about on entrepreneurship, it's on, you'll find a link from the left column or the sidebar. You can go to rajeshjain.com/proficorn, CORN, and read up there. There are 100+ notes, short posts which are there. So thank you very much. And let's get to Q&A.
Thank you so much, Rajesh. I mean, those are such powerful nuggets. And each of those nuggets, I think you could have probably talked for about like at least 10 days, right? I mean, you say it in such a simple manner, but there are just so many questions that keep coming into our minds. What do you say, Vishal?
Absolutely. And I noted, I was making my own notes, so I have a lot of to-dos. Picking from this, the simple one, right? Even the writing notes. So I think absolutely amazing. Rajesh.
Right. Okay. So for all the participants who are here, how are we going to conduct the next part of the session would be to help you ask questions. I know I have lots, and I know Vishal has lots, but giving you an opportunity to. So there's two ways. Either you could raise a hand and then we will ask you to unmute, or you could write your question in the chat, which we will monitor, and then ask Rajesh ji that question, right? So, and before we do that and give you a time to think about these questions and write it, we would just like a poll. Rajesh ji, if that's okay, just 2 minutes.
Absolutely.
To find out about our participants. So we would request each one of you to kindly answer this poll, which is coming up on your screen right now. It's a very simple one, yes, no. It should take you less than 30 seconds to answer, but we value this information. Thank you so much. Poll should be visible. Yes, people have. Yes, please, yes. Now people have started answering. Really request. Request everybody to answer so we get an idea of who our participants are. Rajesh ji, what we are asking them is whether they have attended a level up series before, right? We're also asking whether they come from one-on-one mentoring. And the third question which we're asking them is whether they've attended a group mentoring session by JPF before. Because we know that some people attend regularly. I can see certain names, and we know that some may be new to this whole concept of level up series. Okay, so it stopped, and let's see. We're just ending the poll right now. Thank you everybody for participating. Sanyog, Rajesh ji, Vishal.
Yep.
I think you can see the results right there. It's almost 50-50 of whether people have attended the mentorship program and here mentoring sessions. Most of the people have not attended a mentoring session. So after this whole thing at around 12:30, we will give you more information on how you could sign up to be a mentee. And the group sessions, again, majority, 60% say they have not, and only 35 have attended a group mentoring session. Thank you so much for this. Right. So what do we start our Q&A with?
Maybe I can start, and then in the meanwhile, you can just collate the questions, Sushma ji.
Sure.
So one I could see, Rajesh ji, I think in your presentation, a lot of reference to reading, and I realized that I have not been reading except once in a while your blogs, but otherwise books I start and then I stop. And I think many of my colleagues and friends, the reading has become more like a rare habit, if I can generalize it. If you can just share a bit more about how it influenced and how practically people can still carve out time. Otherwise, reading is equal to always do a very specific search on Google and get an answer, which is actually not that deep. So if you can just share your thoughts.
Yeah, very good point, Vishal. So I think there are a couple of things which are very important. First is, to do something, you have to stop doing something else. Because it's a matter of time.
Yeah.
And one of the things which I would strongly recommend, and of course it's a recommendation, is that reduce the time being spent on social media. Okay, today we will endlessly browse news and Twitter and Facebook and all of these things and WhatsApp messages. Everyone is sending you, you're on multiple groups, etc. There's a constant stream which work as distractions. Because once you can stop that, okay, then what will open up in your life is essentially contiguous time. See, for reading is not 160 character reading.
Yeah.
Reading, you need to create contiguous time. And it's the best form of advice. Think about it. You are getting to read or getting wisdom from a person who has spent a lifetime in that area. And all you have to pay is 700 rupees for the book. But what you have to pay a lot more of is with your time. We pay sometimes the 700 rupees, but we forget about paying with our time. So create contiguous time. Always have 1 or 2 books handy. A meeting gets cancelled. You're traveling. There is dead time. Rather than picking up the phone and doing WhatsApp, open a book and start reading. And you don't have to read a book cover to cover. Many times you start reading. Maybe the first chapter, last chapter. There are lots of good ways on how to read a book. You get the essence of the book. Don't be afraid to basically discard a book if you don't find it interesting. So, because see, how else are we going to learn? I know the younger generation got a lot of temptation to watch videos. That's also a great way if you can ensure that you get the right videos to watch. But I've always found that sitting in one place, so create a good place in your house where you can sit. You are not likely to get disturbed every few minutes because you got to get inside the the author's mind. And those ideas then have to gel with what you are thinking. That's the intersection, which really creates the leap of thinking. So you can make notes in the book, or you can keep a separate notebook where you can essentially write down key ideas. But make reading a part of your daily life, like you would do exercise, physical exercise. This is mental upgradation that you are doing. Maybe 30 minutes, 1 hour. And of course, some of the dead times which are there, try and do that, because that's how you can make the next leaps forward. And luckily for us, there's a lot of good stuff out there in the world. The problem is with us, we've got to create that contiguous time.
Wow.
Sure. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. I mean, absolutely. We have to make time. And that's really the critical part, I think, constantly make time. So
And
for the next
on that point, I really like that beside a threshold, like $100 rule. Otherwise, sometimes time is going in something which is so trivial. So I think that absolutely is the rule I'm going to be implementing.
And it comes from a lot of things. We are competent, we know how to do, and then we feel, should we ask somebody else? Should I delegate? Should I not? Even in the house, as a person looking after the house, there are times when I don't feel like asking somebody else, and I keep doing it. And then all my time gets taken up by these little itsy bitsy things, as Stephen Covey says, put your big rocks in first. And Rajesh, what you're saying is a book that had a very powerful impact on me was Stephen Covey's 7 Habits. Very similar thoughts there too. And once you start implementing, I think implementing is the key. So what do we remember at the end of the session? And I'm going to request this from everyone who's attending the session today. There are such powerful nuggets right here. please go take a pen, paper, and at the end of the session, write down at least 2 things that you are going to start doing from today. Koi bhi choose, any 2, whatever appeals to you. And then you'll see a difference in your life. Am I right, Rajesh ji?
Absolutely right, Sushma ji.
Okay, so let's get more nuggets and let's open it up to our participants and request Meghna Jain, please, if you could switch on your video and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Good morning, sir. I'm super inspired by after listening to you today. I'm 26 years old. I'm an entrepreneur. I started when I was 22, and a lot of things that you said, things like the monkey problem, it was as though you were just speaking to me. Sometimes I tell my team that, why have I even kept a door here? You just walk in all the time with problems. The question that I have for you, especially because you said that your ventures were bootstrapped and we are also bootstrapped, we don't have investors. I'm the only founder. Personally, because we've completed 4 years now and I've seen employees come and go and everybody has a specific goal to fulfill. I've been feeling very alone as an entrepreneur. I feel like I'm the only one who has a full-time commitment to this and everybody else is just getting on and off the train. And how do you, kind of get over that feeling?
It's a great point, Meghna. I can understand, especially today when turnover in companies is very high, where people are, just that next jump in salary without the long-term commitment. I think there are 2 possible things. And you may be doing both, but just possible suggestions. I think one is that the combination of probably ESOP for employees. Not everyone, even in companies like Netcore, people will forget about the ESOP and just join because someone's giving them a few lakhs more. So that's always going to be there. But possibly stock options, plus also explaining to them the longer term vision of the company. That, look, if you can give 3-4 years, then there is a great wealth creation opportunity. We are also going to make a significant difference in the world, because some people, of course, are chasing money, but some people also want a more meaningful life, especially millennials today want something more than just the money part of it. Okay, so that is one. Second is, I think, and I can understand, feeling alone is because I went through exactly that in my early ventures. Finding, and I didn't have this knowledge at that time, but if you can create a small advisory board for your company, 3 or 4 people, so who can review your business also every quarter. So I've done this in Netcore for the last 15 years. I have now 6 people, but we had 2 people initially. So it's not just me who's making decisions. I would get the entire core team to present to them as if we are a public company and there's a formal board. So it's not a formal board. So there's no fiduciary responsibilities that they have. But what this does is it also gets you some outside-in views. People in your team also get to interact with some very good people outside. So all it needs is 3 hours of time from 2 to 3 people once a quarter. So that way you also get outside-in views. You also find that you have at times when you need help, you have someone you can call who understands your business. It's not like you can call up a friend, but there's no understanding. I mean, to explain your problem will take a long time. So create that advisory board for the company, which I think can help you perhaps.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Meghna, for your question, and wonderful. And Rajesh ji, of course, I mean, every sentence is so powerful. Okay, next question, we're going to request Jay Bora from Jaipur. He also happens to be JBN, part of JBN. So please, could you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you, JPS and Rajesh ji. Rajesh ji, delegation supposed to be a big bottleneck in the SMEs or in life of entrepreneurs. What happens with me is every time whenever I'm thinking or trying to delegate, there are apprehensions, there are the results off path which comes in front, that it is not going to be the way what I am thinking or assuming and things like that. So almost 90% of the time, the things which need a proper delegation are being done by the entrepreneur or myself, I would say. So how to handle this? Because I have tried many times, applied many practices of delegation, but till now it's a critical challenge.
It's a very good point, Jay. I think it's a problem which we all face. So what I did was, and again, I can speak from my experience. There is, of course, no perfect formula in any of these things. First thing in delegation, I think there are two very critical foundational things in delegation. Number one is you have to have the right people. Both are very obvious, but without that, delegation will never work. You need the right people, and you need a mutual level of trust between the person you're delegating to and for them also to trust you. Basically, because it's like when you're delegating, you're almost like jumping off like an acrobat. And you need to make sure there's a safety net down, which works. So therefore you need to assume that when you delegate, things will get done. Now, I think my basic belief is that, a lot of people are essentially can deliver things, spending some time, maybe a little bit more time upfront, guiding them through what is expected, helping them see that map, because they will not have the map, and not everyone can function without a map. Okay, you can function without a map. You only need the compass, but many people need. So maybe step by step, telling them, okay, this is what needs to get done. Maybe you'll have to do it first time, second time, and then hopefully they will learn. If they are not going to learn, then you have the wrong person. So it's another point that Jim Collins says, before you get the right people on the bus, you have to get the wrong people off the bus. So people and trust, I think, is very important. Some amount of detailing, so that they know, basically helping them with the map, I think becomes very important in the initial stages. And you have to assume that there will always be, no one will ever be able to do it perfectly as you can. But what you have to think is, what are the most important things where your time is better spent on? What are the things only you can do? Because see, for a business to grow, okay, there are some points which are more important than the other points. So which are the things which only you can do? Find someone whom you can trust, who can in fact manage people. Like I realized very early on that I'm not a very good people's person. When we were growing India World, my wife Bhavna, she basically managed the entire team. Because when people would come to me with the monkeys with the problem, I would not have easy answers. And with Bhavna, she was fantastic. And I mean, she just basically would figure out any problem and, okay, here's the path to getting it solved. She's not good in the big picture vision things. She will tell you exactly what needs to get done today to get the job done. And this worked out very well. And we discovered it pretty much by accident. I didn't, of course, I never knew her capabilities when we got married, arranged marriage. So I think you can find someone like a number 2 person in your company, because you are there for the emergencies. In a way, it also reflects back on the Meghna question, which was there. For the emergencies, you always have to be around, but you also need to do the longer thinking, etc., which will make a bigger which can have a bigger impact on the business. So it's a mishmash of suggestions. I don't know which ones will work, but you have to try out a few things differently.
So Rajesh ji, if I'm picking up what you're saying, some things happen by accident, but can we be more conscious about it? What I think happens to most of us, we tend to like and surround ourselves with people who think like us and work like us. If we can really appreciate the other skills and be complementary in when we are forming our team or picking the right people, would be a huge asset to the company. What do you say?
You are absolutely right. So, for example, when I made the decision to hire a CEO for the first time, for 10 years, I'd been an entrepreneur on my own. I did not have a number 2 sort of person in that sense, or a CEO person in that sense. Now, the person was, Abhijit Saxena, who had joined, was very different from me. And I had to learn to accept that we are two very different individuals. I also decided at that time that, look, in a company, there has to be one leader. I cannot undermine that person. So it's disagree and commit, but do it privately. The disagreement has to be not in a meeting. Otherwise, these relationships don't work. So for Jay, for example, can he find a COO type person who is much better basically at managing people, managing things, the operational side of things, who loves getting into the details to get it done, because he has to do a few other things also. He has to talk to the customers, get maybe the big orders in, ensure deliveries on time. All of those other elements are also there. So, see, these are things which we learn, but the first thing to accept is, okay, I think it's a very good point, that accept that there is a problem, because only then will we start thinking of the solution. If we think we are perfect, then the solution will never, the idea of a solution will never occur.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. So there are a few questions that have come up in the chat, and would request the Shreyans and Khushbu, because both of them asked the same question. What do I do when I get stuck? I'm confused. I don't know. I don't see a clear path. What should be the next step? How to decide that?
Okay. Okay. It's very difficult to answer questions like this because they are very generic, depends where you are sort of stuck. But when I face a challenge, when I see a problem, and there are two things. Sometimes you need to first step away from the problem for one or a day, a few hours or a day. Let your subconscious work on it, but don't just jump into trying to solve it right away. Okay, because what you need is a different frame of reference. You need to maybe think about the problem differently. So you need a little bit of break. I mean, it could be spending 2-3 hours watching a movie, for example, or reading a book. What I've found many times is that many times when I'm reading a book, even though it's on an unrelated topic, the book in a way, and does not matter the specific book, actually can help point to the solution. Okay, it's remarkable. I mean, I don't have examples of them, but many times, like, the C.K. Prahlad book, which I spoke about, Competing for the Future, the Jim Collins ideas, beyond entrepreneurship 2.0 and many things. When I was looking about 2 years ago, a friend told me about a book called The Outsiders, which basically said, what is the number one metric for measuring a CEO? It's not just about, valuation, it's per share growth. It's capital allocation. And I never even had heard these phrases before. What does capital allocation mean? And then I started reading up a lot more on that. So taking a break, doing something different, maybe reading a book, going for a walk, etc., sleeping over it will help. The second thing which I do is, okay, then I sit and list out all the possible options which are there. Okay, so just make a laundry list of what are the possibilities for you to get out of this mess. And then you have to start working through, okay, which is the feasible option, the consequential and irreversible, because in the end of the day, you've got to make a decision. See, getting stuck is part of the terrain. It is like, you're falling down from a mountain. You've got to enjoy it. The one core belief that I've always had, and it does not matter what stage of life you are in, what stage of business you are in, there will always be challenges. My one core belief is, and even the hardest of times, is that whatever happens, there will be some good which will come out of it. You will not realize it right now when you are facing those problems. But when you look back at it 6 months later, you will realize, what? That was a turning point in life. You don't realize when you're making the turn. You realize it with 2020 sort of hindsight vision. When in 1999, when I was trying to raise funds, and most of the times people said no to me, and I was very worried at that time, saying, how will we grow? I have some savings from the profits, but it's not enough to do advertising. Everyone else was doing that. You can't hire a professional team. And my wife and I had taken a small break. We had gone to Singapore, and it was a very depressing period for me because I kept thinking about this problem. We were walking around, and I say, what will happen to our company? And I come back, and we have 2 offers to acquire the business at much greater than what I had ever imagined. So all of this, there is always a little bit of element of luck. So people always asked me after the deal, I was 32 when I ended up with almost $100 million. Were you lucky or were you smart? And this was another one of those tricky or questions, okay? And my answer was, and I thought a lot about it, and my answer was that I was smart enough to ensure that luck could work for me. Okay, because I made the decision to do India well. It's not one or the other. Even for luck to play a role, you need to give luck an opportunity where you can benefit from it. Okay, so these are all very, see, at times when if your business or your something is not succeeding, you have to give it up. Okay, that is also there. Every time I've seen in my life, it has always been hard to make the decisions to close a door. Okay, because as people, you're passionate, you have built something for the last 1, 2, 3 years, and then you're saying, it could be an initiative, it could be a business, anything, something which you've been working on, and you feel that, no, I will make it work. That one order which will come will transform this thing. But at some times you have to say, enough is enough. Because only when you close one door, will new doors start opening up. That's the way the world is, because otherwise you're just trapped behind that one door. So that's how I think, so you have to be, optimism, of course, is very, very important in life. So there are multiple ways by which we have to think about this thing. But yeah, no way to give an easy answer, but just some tidbits from life.
These are amazing insights again. And this is the best answer I've heard about, were you lucky or were you smart?
And maybe on this, I think I read your blogs around stoicism, and even we had a session in Level Up series around spiritual intelligence, and the point which the panelists highlighted, that it helps you to succeed in your professional world, business world, because it gives you the right perspective and not to be attached. I think that's what you wrote about. So it's very, very relevant here.
Absolutely. Okay, we've had some people who've been so patiently waiting with their hands raised. Let's go to some of them. Sapan, would you like to just unmute and come on camera, please? Sapan Shrimal, are you there?
Yes, yes.
Can you switch on your camera? It will be wonderful.
Yeah, wonderful. I think, it's been an hour of grounded common sense soaked in wisdom. Deep wisdom. So thank you so much for this session. It's wonderful. And when we're talking about wisdom, and you spoke about mental models, Rajesh ji, just trying to understand how you balance the two paradigms, because on the one side, see, you do so much. From the business to even the political side also, you've seen your thought process, and you write 15 pages. I think we find it difficult to write one page also during the day. Writing, so managing so many things. It seems like you're doing so much, but at the same time, the wisdom that comes out, the wisdom needs that empty space, that decluttered space. And I'm really, wondering, how do you balance between such plethora of activities, and at the same time, your wisdom comes from that deep, space where you live in. How do you do that?
So, Sapan, I think very good question. So I think there are two things here. First is, how do we create the space? In my case, Netcore is run by a CEO, Jain. He's our third CEO. So there is no one else reporting to me. So Kalpit has the full freedom to run the company. Even if someone comes to me, I'll say that you have to, there are sometimes, people come and ask me for a decision. And I say, first I have to decide that who should make that decision. Just because they have come to me does not mean that I have to make the decision. Okay, so you have to redirect some of these things. So first is, I say it's not possible at every level. When you're running a small business, you've got to be fully involved, etc. And I was like that. But I think a lot of it comes down to how do you create the time? How do you eliminate the smaller, a lot of time gets wasted in these small things. Okay, it's that you're negotiating for that little extra money. When you're booking and this $100 rule came up, once when I was, we were going on a vacation to New York, and I spent 1 hour trying. Hotel rooms were like $400, the good ones, because we were 3 of us and because we want to stay there 12 nights. We wanted a small kitchenette, etc. I said, no, this is too much. I have to find something which is like maybe $250 or $300. And I wasted 1 hour, and then I realized at the end of the day, I'm going to be spending so many lakhs of rupees and flying and doing everything else. These $500 extra is inconsequential in the overall cost of the trip. And then I said, what an idiot I've been. And I'll give you one more story. So a lot of these things take up time. On one of my last trips to the US, now more than 2 years ago, I'd reached one of the connecting airports earlier. The flight landed earlier. And I said, maybe I can try and get an earlier flight to the next destination. So I went to the airline counter, and she said, yeah, you can get it, but it'll cost you about $110 for making the ticket change. And normally I would have said no. I will sit 2 hours in the thing and we will say no. And then the $100 decision rule. Yes. And I had 5 minutes to make the decision because I would have to run to catch the flight to the gate. And it was a good thing because instead of reaching the destination at 10 o'clock at night, I now reached at 8 o'clock. So I could have proper dinner. I could sleep on time and I was ready for the next day. So it's these, many times we sweat the small stuff. So if you can eliminate some of this, see, decluttering the mind, and there are a lot of books, and David Allen, Getting Things Done. He had said one idea which I sort of took to heart and I follow it, is that keep your mind free. More of the times, our mind is full of to-dos to be done. After this, I have to do that, I have to do that. Usko phone karne ka hai, uska WhatsApp message reply karne ka hai, wo jaake usse baat karne ki hai. And one thing he said is, put it down on a notebook, paper, whatever it is, keep your mind completely free. And that is the starting point. That is how the decluttering happens. So I put it down on a list. I carry always, my book is there with me. I always carry a small paper in my pocket with 2 pens, so that even if one pen stops working, I have a second pen of a different color. I've written some of these things, I think, on the blog earlier. All learnings from, you don't have to then, if your pen doesn't stop working. I'm not a very digital guy. I like the paper and pen because I can doodle, I can do lots of drawings and all kinds of things. So, and then my worry always is, what if that device fails and battery goes down or something like that? Paper and pen always works, 2 pens especially. So, and these are 5 rupee pens like this, which I buy in New York. So I don't worry even if I forget a pen or someone walks away with it. And I've got 500 pens like this. So, so that's what, declutter the mind. Don't worry about the small things. Every morning, wake up and ask, what is the most important things that are important that you have to focus on? Okay. And that requires not jumping into the day, but you need that little extra me time where you can think through without the urge to reply to that WhatsApp notification. And by the way, today's world, please keep notifications off. Okay. You don't want those beeps. Every beep is a call to action. Okay, they distract us. There's a new book come out called Stolen, Stolen Focus or Stolen Attention, something like that. Basically, that's what's happening to us. So create time. I think the most important thing is if you can create even 1 hour a day, whether you read, whether you think, whether you write, it will make a huge difference to your day. And trust me, this time cannot be created between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. That is where the world is working. Your messages have started, good morning and whatever else is there. So either you have to wake up early or you have to stay up a little bit late to get that contiguous time. That's a call that you have to make. Okay, so those are the ways. Once you declutter your mind, I think the next level of thinking will start happening much easier.
Wonderful, Rajesh.
Shorter answers to make sure we can cover a lot more questions.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rajesh. I think the $100 rule is now completely etched in the mind, and the keeping the notes, not keeping it in mind. I think this is a great idea to declutter. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sapan, for that question too. And I really appreciate, you're sharing personal examples and, very practical day-to-day things that we can do. It's a day-to-day thing. It's not about, hawa mein kahan budna hai. every day, what are you doing to really achieve that? So Deepak Mehta, would you please ask your question? I know you've said in the chat box also that you really are enjoying this program and learning. You had a question? Yes, Deepak.
Yeah. Hi, Jai Jinendra. Rajesh, it's been wonderful listening to you. And I think the time slot is less. If not, we would have had a lot more to listen from you. Sushma-ji and Vishal-ji, well steered. Rajesh-ji, a question to you. You would have, as you said, that you had fallen or you had not been successful many a times. And you would have also felt you missed opportunities many a times in the process, where you could have been successful or things could have been different, or probably you didn't attempt. Yeah. So how did you overcome this feeling? Because this tends to bring people down or brings us down many a times and distracts the focus.
Very good point, Deepak. See, I'll just answer the two sort of separately. There are missed opportunities. And when I look back, even in Netcore in the last 5 years, there are at least 4 or 5 very big opportunities we were late for. Now, I have 2 options, okay? And you only realized it a little bit later on. You know, a competitor you did not pay attention to, a category you did not pay attention to, an acquisition you perhaps did not do. Now there are 2 options. We can either spend time dwelling on the past or looking at the future, okay? We cannot change the past. Past is done. What I try and do is to analyze where were the flaws in my decision making. It is not about what I should have done based on today's information. It is what should I have done based on the information I had at that particular time when I needed to make the decision. Were there information sources which I missed? Were there signals which I missed? Now, what are the corrective measures I can take to ensure that that does not happen? So what has to change in my system, in my habits, to ensure that the things which made me make an improper decision at that time are not repeated. But dwelling too much, it's done. Now the past is gone, it's over. Now I've got to look ahead to the future. Okay, so, and these are expensive decisions. Each decision could have added hundreds of millions of dollars to our valuation, for example, or tens of millions of revenue, etc., and so on. But that's gone. I cannot change this. I cannot sort of, life doesn't have a back button, basically. Okay, so that's number one. See, in the case of, so you've got to just take the learnings and make sure that your decision-making process gets better. That's important. Okay. Because that will help you for the future. And there are a lot of good books now, a lot of good books and learnings, etc. And I think some introspection has to be done on decision-making. Second is from the failure side. You know, see, failures are always very hard because we are directly involved. We take a lot longer to essentially call it a failure and then move on. There, I think my only sort of point there would be that in every time I failed, I realized that there were multiple people around me telling me that this is not going to work, and I ignored all of them. Okay. It is my hubris, my arrogance that basically made me go down a path where others could see. So creating mechanisms where people who have your good at heart, our good at heart, are able to speak candidly. And then when they are saying, we have to give some thought to what they are saying. Just because, we think we are the best. Okay, because other people have a different frame of reference, different thing. I always ask after I do a session, etc., what could I have done better? What could I have done different? Being open for critical feedback. I was not like this earlier. But I realized that you have to, as long as we keep in this thing that how can I be better tomorrow? It's that 1% improvement rule. If I can be 1% better, I can be 37 times better in a year, compounding. So while compounding works in investing, it can also work in personal life. So that's really a sort of the answer which I would sort of summarize in. Like I said, many times it's very difficult without a specific context, but these are generic answers. So
thank you.
They're like crossing in that sense. Use it for anything.
Thank you so much. I mean, this really brings me back, if I may share the personal thing. Me and my husband are actually poles apart. So what you said, no, I'm an optimist, and he's not exactly a pessimist, but he can say, what's going to work? So before I do anything, he always say, ye nahi hoga. So pehle to I would say, get upset. Then just like you said, we realize some of these things. So now today, I very patiently ask, okay, tell me, why do you think it'll not work? So I'm more prepared what will go wrong, and then chances of my success is so much better, and it's amazing. So, opposites should attract. Okay, and now being very mindful of time, Rajesh ji, and I know you have another appointment, and we really, really appreciate whatever you've given us, all these. And what I'm going to request is that all who've attended, please write in the chat box at least 2 things that you're going to do. So many tips have been shared. Please write in the chat box what you're going to do. Aaj commitment karo. Right? And there are hands that have been up, like Akash, Yash, there have been hands up, which people wanted. And even I would love to have this conversation with you again and again and again. And I wish I'd met you 45 years, 50 years ago and got a mentor like you. But anyways, nice to meet you today.
Let's take, I'll just give quick short answers, maybe from Akash and Yash, since they have their hands raised. Let's do this.
Sure. Thank you so much. That's really considerate of you. Akash, would you quickly ask your question, please?
Yeah. Hi, Rajesh ji, Jai Jinendra. It was great to hear about, all the things which every entrepreneur could relate. And I will quickly finish because I know there's another one waiting in the line to get your valuable time. I have a confusion in my mind. I come from a business family, traditional business family, brick to mortar sort of mechanism. And I have started my other vertical, pretty successful, not very great, but yeah, in my industry, I come in the domain of top 4, top 5 in the country. And we are not that big. We are pretty small, but yes, things are going good. But I have a confusion. I have a tech idea from last 4 to 5 years going in my mind. And I am not a techie guy. I am in a hardcore, operations, quick decision maker, optimistic guy. And I really don't know how to go about that idea. It's really a tech-based app sort of and platform sort of thing. And once I'll tell you my experience, I really found difficult to find a normal website developer. So it gives me a lot of, worry that how will I find a person or how to find a co-founder who can, because I believe that idea would work. As you said in the first slide, that 70% of the things you believe the real problem in the real world, and the business has to be customer driven. That's how my line of belief are. So I'm really confused how to take it up further and how to will it affect my ongoing established brick to mortar business?
Here is what you do, Akash. I mean, just again, a generic suggestion again, but create a small budget which you can afford to experiment with. Okay. So it should not hurt your core business. And you can, today there are lots of companies who can do outsourced development, who can pick up, ideally, if you can find a technology person whom you can hire internally, who can drive it, nothing like it. Okay, you will need that person internally. Okay, definitely. But create a small budget for experimentation, because if you don't think about disrupting yourself, someone else outside could do the disruption. No?
Yes. That is making me sleepless. That is making me sleepless.
So try that out. Keep a small budget which you can experiment with. See, it starts with money and a person.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward for a mentor, sir. I mean, I'm really very keen to get, that can.
We're losing you, Akash.
Akash, let's connect. You can check with JITO. I think they have a great mentoring program. Let's go to Yash so that I make sure we get him before I have to leave.
Thank you, Rajesh sir, and all the or committee members for this wonderful session. My straight away question, Rajesh ji, to you is basically what keeps you moving forward even after scaling a company from scratch to 750 plus crore and trying even doing new things daily from scratch? So means how do you keep refueling yourself? What activities and what actions do you do daily which keep refueling? मतलब अभी कुछ और भी करना बाकी है जैसा जोश हम भी कैसे लाए हैं अपने अंदर?
No, great question. It's basically this belief that there are many more mountains to climb. I think there are, if you read my blog, and I'm very open with my writings, there are 3 broad areas in my life. And I think each of these things I keep thinking about, and it's narrowed down to this 3. Netcore, how do I make it keep growing? How do we make it a public company, etc.? So there's a work in that direction. At some point of time, I want to go back to how do we transform India? What I tried, the freedom and prosperity movement called Nai Disha. But I want to go back to that at a later point of time, because I believe that we need a different direction to create a much larger platform for prosperity. And then later on is philanthropy, that whatever we have in life, how can we build institutions? So it's not just giving away. What I want to do is, I've written about all of these things, that how can you build institutions that outlast us, institutions for generations to come. So whether it's in the field of education, whether it's think tanks, whether it's in other academic areas, or a school of governance, etc., based on what I would like to do, but build it with scale. Okay, because I don't want to do it when I'm too old. There's not much money should be left to the next generation also. They have to chart out their own pathway and life. Otherwise, you're going to do them more harm than good. But if we start thinking that, see, basically we have all one life. It's that Clay Christensen's book, How Do You Measure Your Life? So what I did was, again, I'll end with this. I read this about 15 years ago. And I've again written about this also in the Proficorn series. I think it's one of the last ones. Write your obituary. What writing your obituary will do is to make you reflect back on what you want to be have done in your life, and then you live life forward. Okay, so once you die, what is the things which you hope that you would have accomplished? And then don't wait forever. So I'm 54, 55. So I basically got maybe 10, 15 years of active life. Then you sort of have to slow down, naturally, health, all these issues coming up. So how is it you getting some clarity by looking behind? And I've done this exercise even 15 years ago. So you don't have to wait for you to become very old to do any of these things. So thank you, Yash.
Thank you, Yash, for this. Yes, thank you. And thank you, Rajesh ji, firstly, for your valuable time, and really look forward to many more. I'm sure, we will continue this session now. So I request everyone not to log off. We are going to have more things, and we will continue how to join, what else we've got. Please stay. Rajesh ji needs to leave. So Nipunji, would you do a quick vote of thanks?
Sure, Sushma ji, thank you very much. I don't really know where to start with and say so many thanks coming out from my heart. So, but again, in simple words, Rajesh ji, thank you very much. It was really, I was just thinking like Jain principles in action, which we are getting from you. So really wonderful. So nice of you. Thank you very much, Rajesh ji.
Thank you very much. It was a wonderful session.